Good afternoon, all. CamelbackTrading.org coming to you this Monday afternoon, October 26th, and we are looking at the SPY ETF's market profile here on Window Trader. And finally, the bears get ticked off and basically tell both Democrats and Republicans, hey, enough's enough. We want something. But I'll tell you what, the way we ripped down in B, C, D, E, they paused. We went 4 wide here and then continued down. They had that other weekly low in their sights and then basically took a lot back as we closed just above half back. We end with 3 sets of single prints, 2 small ones, 1 large one. We are below last week's low. We are below the 50-day moving average, although not by a lot. Volume, pretty good. 85 million with the after hours. So we're going to do at least 90. The average is under 68 million. But again, for my money's worth, it's still short-term traders that took this market down. With week longs getting out, remember, we had a 5-day balance. So anybody who is long up here, once we took out last week's low, the floodgates open. You see where change took place, right? C's low from the 22nd, C's low from today. Took it out, boom, flush. I said on Friday, why are we taking this up? There's nothing new with stimulus, but they wanted to take it up, and they closed it up there. So whoever was long from that day and the previous 4 days, once we got below, they got out. Did anything else come out today that was new? Absolutely not. They spoke for 52 minutes today. And guess what? They still have no agreement. So even though we pushed a little low in M had a double reversal bar. They took out L's high, took out L's low, took out L's high, and closed just above half back. So it remains to be seen where we go from here. Some damage has been done, though. The weekly, the intermediate time frame is now down. We went from up to balance to now we're one time framing down 2 weeks, and the daily's down. So the monthly's balanced, but the other 2 time frames are down. So with a week to go before the election, we are starting to get somewhat of trepidation, I think, in the marketplace. I had a good day. Didn't take any huge trades again. Didn't even take as many trades as I could have or should have possibly, but still had a good day. First one was in A period. When we gapped lower, I took a 343 put. Not right away, but when A period went up, closer to filling the gap, took it back down to the opening. That was a nice trade. Every trade was from today. It was a 343 put. The only trade I lost on today, B period, we took out A's high, came back in, I took a long. Now, I did well on it initially because it kept going back and forth between A's high and B's high. I thought for sure the gap was 15 cents we had left on. I'm like, for sure, we're going to fill it. That's all I wanted out of it. So each time it came in, I bought, went up, took off. But then finally, I had only small left. But then when it started coming down pretty good, took it off and took out basically what I had made in B period on that long and lost small. Not a big deal. Still thought it was the right trade just to fill the gap. Then the acceleration started. Didn't get on board right away. Wanted to see what happened at last week's low. Once we took that out, I got on with 343 puts. Again, I didn't stay in these things as long as I should have, once again, but scalp shorts in C, scalp shorts in D. So the 343s in C, the 342s in D, the 342s in E. Made money on all of them, which made me 4 out of 5 on the day. 4 shorts made money to 1 long lost money there. Now, we finally got 2-sided trade here. I said, and the huge purpose in my room, especially to the newer traders, is to tell them not to try to fade this. Wait for 2-sided trade. There is no reason in the world to try to catch this. Well, we did get 2-sided trade here. Now, I did not take a long, but I told the room. I said, well, you finally have 2-sided trade here. One of 2 things will happen. We're either going to now get the shorts saying, okay, maybe enough's enough, and G takes out F's high, and we stop the one-time framing and they cover. Or they're just resting here. We're still one-time framing down, and then they continue. Well, that's exactly what they did. So if anybody was long in G period, I told them either below F's low or certainly below E's low, you better be out. And because look what happened. G, H, I, flush down. Now, I didn't do anything in those. I actually watched them. Should have gotten on board, but I watched them. I easily could have scalped shorts in all three time frames. The trade I did take, which turned out to be a pretty good trade, was the long in J. Once I came back in, once J started, barely took out G, I'm like, I'm not going to be the innovator. I do not want to be the innovator. Could have been the innovator in G and lost money if I held on to a long. But once J took out I's high, I got on board with a 334 call and rode that, started riding that up to the point of control, which was easy. We filled the single prints, and then I'm trying to think where the point of control was. I took the rest off after we took, I think it was probably a little bit above E's low. So I didn't hold them the whole time, but it was a nice trade. It was the 334 calls. And then I was looking for the afternoon rally high. K period took out J, took a put play, 340 puts, wrote it down, did not write it down as much as I should have, but that would turn out to be a nice trade, and that's all I did. So I did 7 trades. A couple of times I scalped more than once, but I considered that the same trade. So I took 7 trades, 5 shorts, 2 longs, made money on 6 of them. Nothing was bigger than 25 lots. Didn't take the big 100 lot position that I take a lot of times or bigger, and still had a very nice trading day. Okay, destinations for tomorrow. First one will be single prints. Now, they got filled in N period, but from what I'm seeing in E, they did not. So I'm still counting M's high, which I have at 339.48, and filling the single print C's low at 53 cents. Then we have the large set. D's high, 339.66, get filled at B's low, 341.52. So that's a rather large set. Almost 200 ticks. And then the third set, small, 341.50, get filled at 75. And then today's high of 342.98, and filling that small gap at 343.13, a 15-point gap. For the downside, now we're only 8 wide. So I am not counting that. You know, I like 9 wide. I won't disregard it, but I think M period is going to be huge tomorrow as far as it coming into play. We have today's low of 335.62. Then we have 334.38 weekly low, 331.95 afternoon pullback low from October 2nd, and 331.19 weekly low. It's this month's low so far. Weekly low fills a gap at 329.58, 161-point gap. It's only a daily gap. It's not a monthly or a weekly gap. Now, I think tomorrow, M period is going to play a huge factor. We have this set of single prints might get filled, but then you have the huge set here and getting back into last week's range, and then you have M period. Right? We know the history of M. So are we going to get accepted back into M's range? Maybe we fill these singles. Maybe we even test these. Test last week's low and then roll over. Well, if that happens, if you get accepted into M, then I expect M to get, not filled, but trade a good part of it. So remember, after a day of this magnitude with 3 sets of single prints, trend day down, usually, again, keyword is usually, you will get some consolidation inside of today's range. Doesn't mean we can't have a great range tomorrow in it, because it's a large range, but usually you will get some consolidation. And then on the charts, so the weekly chart, let me just make this a little bigger. So we are now 1 time framing down. Okay, we took out last week's low, and previous week we took out the previous week. So now it's not balanced anymore. I'm calling it down, 1 time framing down. We did stop so far at 334 before the 334.38 weekly low. Are we going to get it? Totally going to depend on last week's low. If we get accepted back into last week's range, then there's a chance we might not get it. If we, however, don't get accepted back into last week's range then I think the odds are we will go down and get it. And here's the daily. Now, it's a pretty nice comeback. That's a nice candle on the bottom. Somebody asked me, do we have excess today? Well, we have excess as far as we have 40 somewhat cents, 50 cents of excess from the day's low. However, like I said, if we don't take out, and more importantly, we don't get accepted back into last week's range, then nothing's changed for me and the sellers are in control. And that would also mean, the 50-day moving average is just around last week's low. So that's going to be a very key level going forward. Do we get acceptance above the 50 and into last week's range? Look at how we battled it here so much. So that's going to be very, very important for me going forward. I hope you had a good day trading. Come check us out at camelbacktrading.org. Have a great night, and we'll speak prior to the opening tomorrow.